Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about the Game Awards, or more specifically the Game Awards nominees. Now, for those of you who don't know exactly what the Game Awards is, it is a show about video games. It is hosted by Jeff Keighley. It usually goes live sometime around December. This year it is going to be the 7th of December, and usually what happens is a bunch of people get together, they nominate a bunch of games that came out that year for being the best games of their category, and then out of the games that have been nominated for a certain category, they pick the very best one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab the list of nominations that they've already made for this year's Game Awards, and I'm going to tell you guys what my pick would be out of the games that they selected to be the nominees for certain categories. And I would like to do all categories. I tried, but unfortunately the video was a little bit too long, so I'm gonna be limiting myself to a couple of the categories that are for the Game Awards, and I will pick my personal pick, and then I will also decide whether or not I believe that there are other video games that should be considered for certain categories. Anyway, without any further ado, let's get started. I'm going to be going by an arbitrary order. It's not going to be the same order that you guys will see on the website. And the very first category that I want to bring up is the most anticipated game. Now, this is going to be awarded to an upcoming game that has shown significant ambition and promise. Title must be announced and scheduled for release after December 7th, 2017. And the nominees for this category are The Last of Us Part 2, Red Dead Redemption 2, Monster Hunter World, Marvel's Spider-Man, and God of War. And my personal pick out of these nominees would have to go to Monster Hunter World. Come on, are you kidding me? Is there anybody that is watching my channel right now that isn't more hyped for Monster Hunter World than any of the other titles in this list? I mean, that's a personal preference, you know. There's some people who might be excited about Last of Us Part 2, which is also most likely going to be a pretty solid title. I enjoyed the original Last of Us. Red Dead Redemption 2, I'm very fearful because of Take-Two's recent foray into like, oh, we want our games to have recurrent consumer spending. And it's like, I'm not really looking forward for being milked dry on a video game. Thank you very much, Take-Two. I'm also interested in God of War. God of War is also looking pretty good, and it's also looking like it's a bit of a departure from the traditional God of War formula. So I'm always interested when a game is trying to like reinvent itself and, you know, recreate what the gameplay for that game should be. That always interests me. So I'm curious about that. And then a game that I would add to the list of most anticipated games. Again, this is a personal selection. The game that I would add to this list that is not nominated would be Code Vein, which if you guys are on my channel, most likely you know what Code Vein is about. If you don't, make sure to look up on the channel because I have videos talking about Code Vein. Next category is going to be Best Audio Design, recognizing the best in-game audio and sound design. And the nominees for this category are Destiny 2, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Super Mario Odyssey. And in my opinion, out of all these titles, if I had to pick one for best audio design, I would have to go with Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. And you guys are wondering, why is that? Well, I don't even like the game all that much, if I'm being completely honest. But the reason I don't like the game is because it's just not my kind of game. However, I have played it through to completion, and I have to say, if the game can make me feel the way that I felt as I was playing through that game, then the audio design is doing a pretty good job. However, I also feel it's kind of unfair because it's a horror game, and horror games do play a lot on audio, but you have to give it to Resident Evil 7. They had fantastic audio design. However, I do feel that there is another game that belongs on this list because they have excellent audio, despite all the recent controversy that is going around that game. And I completely support a lot of the arguments that people are having. As a matter of fact, I made my own videos about that stuff. But the game that I would still like to bring to this list is Star Wars Battlefront 2, because you can say what you want about the fucked up progression system they come up with, all the loot box nonsense that is happening in that game, and I agree with most of what you guys are saying. The game is terrible, progression system, game's terrible, loot box, all that stuff is atrocious, but when it comes to sound design, that game is fucking phenomenal, and I will not allow anyone to say otherwise, because you have to be objective in certain things. And I love the sound in Star Wars Battlefront 2. Anyway, moving on to the next category, which is for Best Score / Music. for outstanding music, inclusive of score, original song, and or licensed soundtrack. And the nominees are Destiny 2, Cuphead, Nier Automata, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, and Persona 5. And my personal pick from these nominees for best score/music, come on, it's easy. Everybody knows what I'm gonna say. Persona 5, baby. Are you kidding me? None of these games even comes close to Persona 5 as far as I'm concerned. Well, there is one game that comes somewhat close, and that is Nier Automata, because Nier Automata's soundtrack is also fucking phenomenal. And if you haven't checked it out, I would advise you to check it out right now. Both Nier Automata's soundtrack as well as Persona 5's soundtrack, which are really, really good. You see, for games in this category, the way that I tend to think of it is, what game, while I was playing, did I feel the need to increase the volume on the television so that I could blast that music even louder, so that I could get even more immersed and more engaged with the game? And the games that managed to do that were definitely Nier Automata, Persona 5. I guess I didn't do it that much in Breath of the Wild, because the music in Breath of the Wild is much more underscore tuned and stuff. Super Mario Odyssey, although there have been a couple of times where the music kind of takes the forefront and it is pretty good too, but Persona 5 still definitely comes out on top. However, there is a game I feel also belongs on this list, and that game is Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And I know the game isn't out yet, but then again, they have a game in this list that is also not out yet, so I get to call out a couple of games that haven't come out yet, okay? I get to do what I want. It is my interpretation of the list, so friggin' deal with it. And Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has definitely had more than one occasion where I went to my TV and blasted the volume up because I wanted to hear the music even more. And anyone who's watched my preview will probably know what moments I'm talking about. Anyway, moving onwards to the next category, we have Best Art Direction for outstanding creative and or technical achievement in artistic design and animation. And the nominees are Destiny 2, Cuphead, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Persona 5, and Horizon Zero Dawn. Now, when it comes to art direction, there is one very important thing that instantly comes to mind, and that is that the key word here is art direction. So, in my opinion, the game that wins this for me from these nominees would be Persona 5. And you guys are like, what? But here's the thing, because like, if it was just animation, like Horizon Zero Dawn wipes the floor with all of the other titles that are in here. The animation on Horizon Zero Dawn is unparalleled when compared to any of the other titles in here, as far as I'm concerned personally. Animation on the game is friggin' fantastic. But when you're talking specifically about art direction, Cuphead's art direction is also pretty unique. As a matter of fact, it is unique pretty much in the industry. It's really good art direction. But Persona 5 manages to do so much with not even focusing on resolution. I'm not saying this Cuphead's focusing on resolution, but what I'm saying is like Persona 5 manages to do something which I found impressive, which is it brings all of this style and all of these things to the UI, the animations of the characters. It's like, it's in a way, it's not visually impressive from a fidelity standpoint, but it manages to blow your mind from a sheer style. And that is kind of what I feel art direction best describes, is what I personally experienced in Persona 5. But that is a personal opinion. And again, Horizon Zero Dawn, also a super solid title in terms of animation, and Cuphead also doing a really good job. It's just, we had really good artistic games, because even Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild has friggin' fantastic art. So all of these games are super solid. The one game that is on this list that I don't really agree with that much is Destiny 2, and I'm not saying it's not a good looking game, it is, but it's not a big departure from what we've already experienced in Destiny 1, so I don't necessarily feel it belongs in the list, especially alongside games like these. Now, however, I do believe there are a couple of more games that do belong on this list and are not being mentioned, and even though they wouldn't have won it, I would still probably pick Persona 5, even if these games were in there. I feel they should at least be a part of the discussion. And those games for best art direction, my personal nominees would have been, on top of some of the ones that are already here, they would have been Gravity Rush 2. The art in that game is amazing. The animation in that game is also amazing. ARMS for the Nintendo Switch. the art style in that game is friggin' gorgeous. I don't know how people cannot recognize that that is a really cool art direction. Personally, I love the way ARMS looks. I love the way it animates. I love the way it plays. ARMS is a really solid title and deserves a little bit more recognition at least. And the other game is Battle Chasers Night War, which has a really cool art direction, has really cool animations, and I think a lot of people recognize that. I don't know why some of these titles aren't here. I think Battle Chasers is because it's like smaller studio and whatnot, but at least ARMS and Gravity Rush 2 I think belong in there. In my opinion, Battle Chasers Night War also belongs in there, but you guys can also debate this, leave it on the comments below, any suggestion that you would like to see on these lists. Now, for the next list, we have Best Narrative for outstanding storytelling and narrative development in a game. And the nominees are What Remains of Edith Finch, Nier Automata, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, Wolfenstein 2, and Horizon Zero Dawn. And my personal pick out of all of these has to go to Nier Automata, because Nier Automata does such a good job with its story, and anyone who's played Nier Automata through to completion, I'm not just talking about the first ending, I'm talking about the true ending. I think anyone who's played Nier Automata to completion will recognize that it does so many interesting things with the way that it tells its story, the way that it tells its narrative. It's unique. It stands apart from any other game in this list, as far as I'm concerned, because it does such a good job of building its narrative and the way that the story is told and how you experience it. Because, like, again, you see a lot of these games, like for instance Wolfenstein 2, in my opinion, you could almost argue that story could be told through a movie. Sure, it's a lot more fun if you play through it and experience it and whatnot, but ultimately it is much more, I mean, I don't want to say it's a linear story, because there are some choices that you get to make on there and stuff. Horizon Zero Dawn, the same thing. I kind of feel like these are stories that could be told through a movie. They happen to be told through video games, and the mechanics are fun and the games are great. I'm not criticizing the games. But what I'm trying to bring with this is that the narrative of Nier Automata cannot be told in movie form. It has to be experienced in an interactive video game. It is the only way to tell that story. And I feel that that deserves a lot of recognition. Now, there's also one more title that I would like to suggest to be in the discussion. I would still pick Nier Automata over any other title in here, but there's one more title I feel deserves to be in the narrative discussion, and that title is Persona 5. Come on, you're gonna tell me the story and the narrative in Persona 5 isn't friggin' amazing? Come on, that's like its best thing. I mean, obviously the gameplay is also really cool, but like the story of Persona is friggin' amazing. How can you not have it in there? Anyway, moving on to the next category, we have Best Game Direction, awarded to a game studio for outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design. And the nominees are Wolfenstein 2, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Super Mario Odyssey, as well as Horizon Zero Dawn. I kind of almost skipped one there. And in my opinion, the best game direction, specifically with what is being told here, awarded to a game studio for outstanding creative vision and innovation in a game's direction and design, it has to go to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And the reasoning for that is because, again, this is for game direction, outstanding creative vision, innovation in game design. And I feel that Zelda Breath of the Wild does so much of that. It's a complete departure from any other Zelda that you've played before. The only thing really in common is like the theme of the game and the characters that are involved in it. Everything else is like a completely different game from any other Zelda that you've experienced. And in that fact, it is also completely different from the genre that it is in, which a lot of people will say it's open world, other people will say it's action adventure, open world, whatever you want to call it. It is different from any of the other games of that specific genre, at least in my personal opinion, because in Legend of Zelda, it's that whole thing about I'm gonna go have an adventure, and there's just not that many games that are doing that. We also have Super Mario Odyssey doing that right now, but Super Mario Odyssey kind of sticks more to its traditional roots. Therefore, The Legend of Zelda innovates more in that aspect than any other title in that list, at least in my personal opinion. Moving on to the next category, we have the best fighting game, for the best game designed primarily around head-to-head combat. And the nominees are Tekken 7, Nidhogg 2, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, Injustice 2, and ARMS. And out of this list, it is very easy for me to pick the one fighting game that I like the most this year because it is ARMS. Are you kidding me? Out of all of these games, through the gameplay that I've seen of Nidhogg 2, because I haven't actually played it, but I have seen gameplay of Nidhogg 2 and Nidhogg 1, so I have a pretty good idea what the game is about. The gameplay that I have seen in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, the gameplay that I have not only seen, but I've also played in Tekken 7 and Injustice 2. These are gameplay that they have refined, it is improved. These are good games. I'm not saying these are bad games. I mean, they're nominated for the best games in their categories, and rightfully so. But ARMS innovates more than any of these other titles. Not to mention it innovates both in terms of the gameplay that you experience, of the art style that you have. It is a new IP. It is just like, it is amazing in my opinion. I've played ARMS, I love ARMS. I think ARMS is extremely underrated, and I have no bones to pick in picking it as the best fighting game that came out this year. As a matter of fact, I've been saying that ARMS is the best game that came out this year since the moment I've played it, as far as I'm concerned. And interestingly enough, these games, Tekken 7, Injustice 2, and ARMS all came around at the same time, and I was just like, dude, ARMS is the best one. If you have a Switch, you owe it to yourself to play it. It's a really solid title. I love it. Anyway, moving on to the next category, the best role-playing game. For the best game design with rich character customization and progression, including massively multiplayer experiences. And the nominees are South Park: The Fractured But Whole, Final Fantasy 15, Divinity: Original Sin 2, Nier Automata, Persona 5. And I think this list is kind of weird. It's a little bit weird, to be completely honest. I mean, my instant pick out of this list is Final Fantasy 15. I mean, you guys know Final Fantasy 15 was my best game of 2016. I really enjoyed my time with it. I feel that they really departed from the Final Fantasy formula and managed to create something completely new. Even though it says 15 on the name, I feel that it innovates a lot from the traditional Final Fantasy experience. And on top of that, we've been getting the episodes for all the other characters, which I gotta be honest, I haven't played those yet. But we also got a multiplayer expansion, which adds even more gameplay to an already amazing game, in my opinion. And then there's also the fact that I believe that there's another game that deserves to be on this list, to be on this discussion, and that game is Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Now, I know that at this point in time, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is still not out, and I'm personally still playing it, still trying to figure out whether or not it is going to be one of the really big ones this year. I am enjoying it quite a bit so far, though, but it deserves to at least be in the discussion. But I know it hasn't come out yet. Then again, neither has PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. But anyway, moving on to the next category, which is Best Action Adventure Game. For the Best Action Adventure Game combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving. And the nominees are Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, Assassin's Creed Origins, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, and Horizon Zero Dawn. Now, when it comes to the best action adventure game, combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving, it's really hard because there's a lot of really good games on this list. I mean, obviously we have the Uncharted Lost Legacy, pretty solid title, although I wouldn't say that it is the best action adventure. We have Assassin's Creed Origins, which a lot of people are saying is really good right now. However, it also still has microtransactions and stuff that really makes me want to not like it because I hate microtransactions and loot boxes and all of these things, but I am still curious for checking it out. I haven't checked it out yet. Then we have Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. We have Super Mario Odyssey, which is just like I can't believe I actually finished Super Mario Odyssey. I would never see myself playing a Super Mario game for that long, if I'm to be completely honest. It's just fantastic. And then we have Horizon Zero Dawn. It's just like, this is a super tough list to make out. But I have to say, in my opinion, the best action adventure game of all of these is probably going to be Super Mario Odyssey, because it just has that, again, that combination of traversal and puzzle solving that I just feel is like perfect. But again, I don't know, it's just like, this is a really tough list. I could see myself going Horizon Zero Dawn or The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild just as easily as I went for Super Mario Odyssey. These are three games that are really tightly together in here, but I would probably pick Super Mario Odyssey for this specific category. I do believe there's one more game that, even though I wouldn't pick it because there's a ton of already really good games on here, I do believe it at least deserves to be in the discussion. Again, it deserves to be in the discussion itself, which would be Gravity Rush 2, which is a super solid title, and people are criminally underrating it. Anyway, moving on. Next category is Best Action Game. For the best game in the action genre focused on combat, the nominees are Prey, Neo, Destiny 2, Cuphead, and Wolfenstein 2. And in my opinion, out of these nominees, one instantly jumps to the top, and that game is Neo. And I know that some people might think, oh, but I thought you were jaded from Neo's second DLC, and it's like, that doesn't mean I don't respect what the game is up until it gets to that point. I loved my time with Neo, and when it comes to best action game, Neo is totally, like, to me, the best one on this list. However, I also feel that there are a couple of titles that deserve to be here as well, because in my opinion, Nier Automata is much more of an action game than an RPG, which Nier Automata shows up on the RPG section of this list, and in my opinion belongs on the action section. So Nier Automata should be on this list as well, even though I would probably still pick Neo over it, because Neo has a much deeper combat system and combo system, and you know, it has more in terms of action, in my opinion, but still, Nier Automata deserves to be on this list. And another game that I would put on this list is Absolver, which is a fantastic title, and it definitely deserves to be in one of the best action games that I've played this year, easily. And finally, we get to the big one, the most important category, the Game of the Year. And the nominees for the Game of the Year are The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, Persona 5, and Horizon Zero Dawn. And my personal pick out of these nominees for the best game that has come out in 2017 is not going to be revealed in this video. Boom! That's right. I'm not going to tell you yet because I'm still figuring it out. I'm still trying to figure out which game I think is the best game that has come out this year. And I don't think the competition is over yet, because even though the competition is already over when it comes to the Game Awards, because they've already said, okay, anything past this date goes into 2018, that's not the way I work. I still have a couple of games that I want to check out. And in the video where I talk about my personal top 10 and whatever, which will come at a later date, there I will reveal which one is my personal pick for the best game of 2017. However, I would like to add that there is one more game that deserves to be on this list that isn't mentioned, and that game is Nier Automata. Nier Automata is not mentioned for Game of the Year, and it totally deserves to be on this list alongside all of these other games, in my personal opinion. And the other thing that I would like to bring up is PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds isn't even out yet. How is that even fair? Like, what's the deal here? So how come certain games that are not out can't be considered, even though they are coming out this year? As a matter of fact, like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, that's coming out this year. It's coming out before PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I mean, even the guy behind PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds says he doesn't believe his game belongs on the running for Game of the Year. It almost feels like it's a popularity contest to put PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds in there. And I think it's kind of unfair, because I think there are other games that have come out this year that deserve to be on that list much more than PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. But anyway, those are my opinions on the nominees for these categories for the Game Awards. Now, if you guys want to know my opinion on a specific category, make sure to type that in the comment section below, and I will respond to you through the comments. That's what they're there for. If you guys have any comments and feedback, leave those in the comment section below as well. Anything that you would like to discuss with me, debate about my personal picks for each category and stuff like that, I'll be glad to engage with you guys on there. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. It really helps out. If you are new here, subscribe so that you're always notified when there's a new video or a new live stream coming up on the channel. Make sure to hit that bell icon as well, turn on notifications, because now you have to do 2 clicks instead of 1 for subscribing to a channel. God knows why YouTube is the way it is. Comments, feedback in the comment section below. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.